Introduction to the Pyramid of Pain. In the modern digital landscape, where cyber threats evolve rapidly and attackers continually refine their tactics, defenders are under constant pressure to keep up. Organizations today face a wide range of challenges in identifying, understanding, and mitigating cyber attacks. Among the various tools and models developed to support cybersecurity professionals, one framework stands out for its elegant simplicity and practical utility: the Pyramid of Pain. Originally developed by cybersecurity expert David J. Bianco in 2013, the Pyramid of Pain is a conceptual model designed to help defenders understand the value of different types of indicators of compromise, IOCs, and the level of disruption those indicators cause to threat actors when utilized effectively. The model's name reflects its central insight: the higher you go up the pyramid, the more pain you inflict on adversaries when you deny or detect those indicators. At first glance, the Pyramid of Pain appears to be a simple hierarchy of IOC categories. However, its implications are deep and far-reaching. It is not just a framework for classifying threat data, it is a strategy guide for security operations teams, threat hunters, and incident responders. It shifts the focus from reactive detection to proactive defense, emphasizing the value of targeting behavioral and procedural indicators over easily changeable technical signatures. The model consists of 6 layers, each representing a different type of indicator. From bottom to top, these are hash values, IP addresses, domain names, network/host artifacts, tools and tactics, techniques, and procedures, TTPs. As defenders move up the pyramid, they transition from static data points to dynamic and deeply ingrained aspects of adversarial behavior. Understanding the layers of the pyramid. 1. Hash values. Hash values are cryptographic representations of files or data. In cybersecurity, they are often used to uniquely identify malicious files such as executables, scripts, or documents. While hash-based detection is fast and simple, it is also fragile. A single bit change in a file results in a completely different hash, making this indicator trivial for adversaries to evade by recompiling or modifying their code. Despite their limited resilience, hashes remain a foundational element of antivirus and endpoint detection systems. 2. IP addresses. IP addresses are used to identify the source or destination of network traffic. Detecting malicious IP addresses is a common tactic in blocking known bad actors or command and control servers. However, adversaries can easily rotate IP addresses or use anonymizing services like VPNs and proxies. As a result, while useful for immediate blocking, IPs offer limited long-term value unless linked to broader behavioral patterns. 3. Domain names. Domains are often used by attackers to host malicious payloads, redirect victims, or maintain control over compromised systems. Domains can be slightly more persistent than IP addresses, especially when attackers use domain generation algorithms, DGAs, or register domains in bulk. Defenders can monitor DNS behavior, WHOIS information, and registration patterns to detect and disrupt such infrastructure. Blocking a domain might force the attacker to modify their tooling and infrastructure, creating moderate friction. 4. Network/host artifacts. Artifacts refer to identifiable technical elements left behind by malware or attackers during operations. These may include registry keys, file paths, mutex names, process behaviors, and HTTP headers. These indicators are more difficult to change because they often reflect functional requirements or hard-coded values within malware. Detection at this level demands deeper forensics and a better understanding of how malware operates. Preventing these artifacts can impede multiple campaigns using the same malware variant. 5. Tools. Tools encompass the malware families, remote access trojans, rats, exploits, and frameworks that adversaries deploy to gain and maintain access. While some attackers write their own custom tools, many rely on publicly available or commercially sourced tools, such as Cobalt Strike, Mimikatz, or Metasploit. Identifying and preventing the use of these tools can be a significant setback for threat actors, particularly if they are reliant on specific software stacks. Denying tool use may force a shift in operational planning and tool development. 6. Tactics, techniques, and procedures, TTPs. TTPs represent the highest and most impactful level of the pyramid. They describe how adversaries conduct their operations, how they perform reconnaissance, gain access, escalate privileges, move laterally, and exfiltrate data. TTPs are difficult to change because they stem from the attacker's expertise, strategic goals, and workflows. For example, if an attacker consistently uses phishing to gain initial access and you build a strong anti-phishing defense, they must redesign their initial attack vector. Detecting and disrupting TTPs delivers the most strategic pain to adversaries and is key to long-term resilience. The strategic philosophy behind the pyramid. The genius of the pyramid of pain lies in its psychological dimension. It considers not just what defenders can detect, but how adversaries react to that detection. Low-level indicators are easy to find and use but provide limited deterrence or disruption. High-level indicators are more difficult to define and detect, but when successfully leveraged, they can force attackers to expend significant resources, delay operations, or even abandon campaigns. This reorientation, from static IOC detection to dynamic adversary engagement, is a fundamental shift in cybersecurity thinking. It challenges organizations to go beyond passive defense and instead adopt an active defense strategy that targets the heart of adversarial capability. Integration with threat intelligence. The pyramid of pain also intersects closely with the domain of threat intelligence. Threat intelligence platforms often collect and categorize thousands of IOCs, but without context, much of this data is noise. The pyramid helps prioritize indicators that matter most. By focusing on tools and TTPs, threat intelligence analysts can provide more actionable insights. For example, understanding that a particular APT group frequently uses specific lateral movement techniques is far more valuable than knowing a few associated IPs. Furthermore, sharing intelligence at the TTP level enables collaboration across organizations and sectors, helping to build a collective defense posture. Alignment with MITRE ATT and CK and other frameworks. The MITRE ATT and CK framework is a widely adopted matrix that categorizes adversary behavior into tactics and techniques. It aligns perfectly with the top layer of the pyramid of pain, TTPs. Using MITRE ATT and CK, security teams can map observed behaviors to known adversary techniques, identify coverage gaps, and build detection strategies that go beyond simple indicators. Security information and event management, SIEM, systems, endpoint detection and response, EDR, and security orchestration, automation, and response, SOAR, platforms are increasingly integrating ATT and CK-based models. These tools help organizations climb the pyramid by enabling the detection of behaviors, e.g., PowerShell execution anomalies, unusual account activity, that indicate attacker techniques. Application in threat hunting and incident response. Threat hunting is another critical area where the pyramid of pain proves invaluable. Effective threat hunting focuses not on waiting for alerts but proactively searching for evidence of compromise using hypotheses based on known TTPs. The higher up the pyramid a hunt focuses, the more likely it is to uncover stealthy or novel threats. Similarly, incident responders use the pyramid to guide containment and remediation. Rather than merely blocking IPs or deleting malicious files, they aim to understand the attacker's playbook. Disrupting TTPs during an active intrusion can shut down entire stages of the kill chain, rendering an attack ineffective even if some initial footholds were gained. Organizational impact and security maturity. The pyramid of pain can also serve as a maturity model. Organizations at the lower end of the maturity spectrum often rely heavily on signature-based detection and IOC feeds. As they evolve, they begin to invest in behavioral analytics, adversary emulation, red teaming, and threat hunting. Each of these steps reflects a move up the pyramid toward strategies that inflict meaningful costs on attackers. Executive leadership and board-level stakeholders can also benefit from understanding the pyramid. It offers a compelling rationale for cybersecurity investment, resources spent on developing TTP detection and threat hunting capabilities yield greater long-term value than constantly chasing low-level indicators. Challenges and limitations. While the pyramid of pain offers many advantages, it is not without limitations. Detecting high-level indicators like TTPs often requires advanced tooling, skilled analysts, and deep data visibility across the enterprise. False positives can increase, and attribution becomes more complex. Moreover, the model is best used in combination with other frameworks and tools. It is not a standalone solution. Nevertheless, the pyramid's conceptual clarity and strategic focus make it an essential element of modern cybersecurity thinking. The pyramid of pain is much more than a taxonomy of indicators. It is a mindset for defenders. It urges organizations to stop chasing yesterday's threats and start focusing on the enduring behaviors of adversaries. By moving up the pyramid, defenders move closer to the root of the threat, reducing attacker freedom, increasing their operational costs, and forcing meaningful changes in adversary strategy. In an era where cyberattacks are more frequent, complex, and damaging than ever, the pyramid of pain remains a beacon for defenders seeking not just to survive, but to win, in the face of persistent threats. Absolutely. Here's an extended introduction to the pyramid of pain in plain text, aiming for a comprehensive overview of the concept, its layers, and its significance in cybersecurity. This version delves deeper into each aspect, providing a thorough understanding suitable for professionals and enthusiasts alike. In the ever-evolving landscape of cybersecurity, defenders are in a constant race against adversaries who continually refine their tactics to breach systems and exfiltrate data. To effectively counter these threats, it's imperative to understand not just the tools and indicators of compromise, IOCs, but also the underlying behaviors and methodologies of attackers. One conceptual model that aids in this understanding is the pyramid of pain, introduced by David J. Bianco in 2013. The pyramid of pain is a framework that categorizes IOCs based on the difficulty they present to adversaries when these indicators are detected and mitigated by defenders. The core idea is that the higher up the pyramid an IOC is, the more challenging it is for an attacker to change it, thereby causing more pain to the adversary when it's neutralized. Layers of the pyramid. 1. Hash values. At the base of the pyramid are hash values, which are unique identifiers for files. While they are easy for defenders to detect and block, attackers can effortlessly modify a file's hash by making minor changes, rendering this IOC relatively low in value for long-term defense. 2. IP addresses. Slightly higher are IP addresses, which can be used to identify malicious servers or command and control centers. However, attackers can rapidly change IP addresses using various techniques, such as leveraging proxy servers or compromised machines, making this indicator also relatively easy to circumvent. 3. Domain names. Domains used by attackers for phishing or malware distribution are more persistent than IP addresses. While changing a domain requires more effort than switching an IP, attackers often use domain generation algorithms, DGAs, to automate this process, reducing the effectiveness of domain-based blocking over time. 4. Network/host artifacts. These include specific patterns or behaviors observed in network traffic or on host machines, such as unusual registry changes or specific command line arguments. Detecting these artifacts requires more sophisticated analysis but can provide deeper insights into malicious activities. 5. Tools. This layer encompasses the actual software and utilities used by attackers, such as malware families or hacking frameworks. Identifying and blocking these tools can significantly disrupt an attacker's operations, as developing or acquiring new tools demands time and resources. 6. Tactics, techniques, and procedures. TTPs at the apex of the pyramid are TTPs, representing the behavioral patterns and methodologies employed by attackers. These are the most challenging for adversaries to alter, as they are deeply ingrained in their operational playbooks. Detecting and mitigating TTPs can effectively neutralize an attacker's capabilities. Significance in cybersecurity. Understanding and applying the pyramid of pain allows defenders to prioritize their detection and response strategies. By focusing on higher-level indicators, such as TTPs, organizations can impose greater operational costs on attackers, forcing them to rethink and retool their approaches. This proactive stance not only disrupts current threats but also deters future attacks by increasing the complexity and expense for adversaries. Moreover, integrating the pyramid of pain into threat intelligence and incident response processes enhances an organization's ability to anticipate and counter sophisticated threats. By moving beyond reactive measures and targeting the core behaviors of attackers, defenders can establish a more resilient security postures. Cybersecurity is a domain characterized by a constant battle between defenders and adversaries. As technology advances and systems become more interconnected, the scale and complexity of cyber threats continue to grow. Organizations face a wide range of cyber attacks, from opportunistic malware infections to highly targeted advanced persistent threats, APTs, carried out by nation-states or sophisticated criminal groups. In this adversarial landscape, defenders must not only detect and block malicious activities but also understand how attackers operate, adapt, and evolve. To effectively defend against this broad spectrum of threats, cybersecurity professionals rely on indicators of compromise, IOCs, pieces of evidence that suggest a system has been breached or is under attack. These indicators can include file hashes, IP addresses, domain names, registry keys, artifacts, and more. But not all IOCs are created equal. Some provide immediate but fleeting value, while others offer deeper insights into an attacker's behavior and long-term operations. This is where the pyramid of pain comes into play. Developed in 2013 by security researcher David J. Bianco, the pyramid of pain is a conceptual framework that helps security teams assess the effectiveness and strategic impact of different types of IOCs. The core premise of the model is elegantly simple. The higher you go up the pyramid, the more pain you inflict on an adversary when that indicator is detected and mitigated. At the most basic level, indicators like hash values or IP addresses can be quickly detected and blocked using automated tools. However, these are also the easiest for attackers to change, often within minutes. In contrast, indicators that reveal an adversary's tools, tactics, techniques, and procedures, collectively referred to as TTPs, are much harder to alter. These indicators are embedded in the adversary's workflows, training, and operational culture. Disrupting them forces a deeper and more time-consuming shift in their approach, effectively degrading their capability to continue operations. The pyramid provides not only a classification of indicators but also an operational philosophy for security teams. It encourages defenders to strive toward detecting and disrupting the more meaningful, harder-to-change indicators, those that hit adversaries where it hurts most. This focus aligns with modern cybersecurity strategies that favor behavior-based detection over traditional signature-based approaches. In this way, the pyramid of pain becomes more than just a model, it becomes a strategic guide for building mature, adversary-aware security operations. By climbing the pyramid, defenders transition from reactive defense to proactive disruption. They shift from blocking known bad files to understanding and countering how an attacker thinks and behaves. This model also serves as a powerful communication tool within organizations. Security leaders can use it to explain to executives why certain defenses are more effective and sustainable than others. It helps justify investments in threat intelligence, security analytics, and advanced detection platforms. It also illustrates why focusing solely on basic IOCs results in a whack-a-mole approach, where attackers quickly adapt and return, often with greater stealth. In a broader sense, the pyramid of pain contributes to a more strategic, intelligence-driven approach to cybersecurity. It dovetails with other frameworks like the MITRE ATT and CK matrix, which maps adversary behaviors across the attack lifecycle. It complements threat hunting methodologies that rely on hypothesis-driven investigation rather than passive alert review. It also supports incident response strategies that prioritize long-term disruption of adversary infrastructure and behavior over superficial containment. The model's emphasis on inflicting pain is not about aggression but about raising the cost of malicious operations. Cybercrime and cyber warfare thrive when adversaries can reuse tactics, tools, and infrastructure with minimal effort. By denying them this advantage, defenders create friction, slow down campaigns, and increase the risk of exposure. Over time, this can lead to significant deterrence and a measurable reduction in threat impact. The Pyramid of Pain offers a clear, practical, and strategic way to evaluate and prioritize threat indicators. It helps security teams focus their efforts where they matter most, on the behaviors and methods that define adversaries' capabilities. It transforms IOC management from a reactive task into a proactive strategy for long-term resilience. In doing so, it empowers organizations not just to survive cyber threats, but to push back, disrupt, and ultimately outpace their adversaries. Hash values, the base of the Pyramid of Pain. Definition and role in cybersecurity. A hash value is a fixed-length string of characters generated by a cryptographic hash function, such as MD5, SHA-1, or SHA-256. These functions take input data, like a file or string, and produce a unique output, or fingerprint, that represents that data. In cybersecurity, hashes are used to uniquely identify files, such as executables, scripts, documents, or any content that may be malicious. For example, a known piece of ransomware will have a specific hash value. Antivirus engines use this hash to quickly identify and block the malicious file. File integrity monitoring, FIM, systems use hashes to detect unauthorized changes in critical system files. Examples of common hash algorithms. MD5, 128-bit hash, fast but collision-prone. SHA-1, 160-bit hash, better than MD5 but now considered insecure. SHA-256, 256-bit hash, part of the SHA-2 family, widely used and more secure. Hash values in the Pyramid of Pain. In the Pyramid of Pain, hash values occupy the lowest level, indicating that they are the easiest type of IOC, indicator of compromise, for both defenders to detect and use in automated systems, attackers to change with minimal effort. Why they're easy for defenders. Simple to compare hashes across files. Ideal for signature-based detection. Can be integrated into antivirus, EDR, firewalls, and CM systems. Why they're easy for attackers. Changing a single byte in the file changes the hash entirely. Adversaries can easily recompile or slightly modify malware, a process known as polymorphism. Automation tools like malware packers or cryptors can randomize payloads and produce new hashes constantly. Illustrative example. Imagine an attacker sends out malware with the hash AB12CD. A defender blocks this hash in the network. The attacker recompiles the malware, which now has a new hash EF34GH, and resends it, bypassing the block entirely. Operational considerations for hash-based detection. Advantages. Fast and computationally efficient. High precision, low false positive rate, if the hash is from a verified malicious sample. Good for known, static threats. Limitations. Zero-day threats or polymorphic malware won't match existing hashes. No behavioral context, hashes don't tell you what the malware does. Over-reliance leads to shallow defense, as attackers can constantly mutate files. Use case best fit. Triage and response. Quickly isolate known malware. Threat feeds, share verified malicious hashes across organizations. Forensics, identify known malware in disk images or memory dumps. Hash collisions and security risks. While less common in modern hashes like SHA-256, hash collisions, two different files producing the same hash, are a theoretical risk, especially with MD5 and SHA-1. These collisions can undermine trust in file integrity systems. Be exploited in sophisticated attack chains, e.g. malware masquerading as legitimate software. Thus, cybersecurity best practices discourage reliance on weak hashes like MD5 and encourage multi-hash usage, e.g., both SHA-1 and SHA-256. Improving the use of hashes in detection. Use in combination with other indicators, e.g., file names, file paths, behavior. Automate collection and enrichment using threat intelligence platforms. Feed into a larger detection framework, like correlation rules or YARA signatures. Apply in file whitelisting and blacklisting, but with fallback checks. In the context of the pyramid of pain, hash values provide a fast, low-cost detection method that offers minimal disruption to attackers. They are a foundational component in many traditional security tools but are also easily bypassed by even modestly skilled adversaries. While hash values remain useful, especially for identifying and responding to known threats, relying solely on them leads to a defensive posture that's reactive and shallow. They represent the first step in a broader defense-in-depth strategy, and their greatest value is realized when integrated with higher-level indicators such as behavioral patterns and TTPs. IP addresses, the second layer of the pyramid of pain. Introduction. In the world of cybersecurity, identifying malicious activity early is essential for effective defense and mitigation. One of the most commonly encountered indicators of compromise, IOCs, is the IP address. As part of the pyramid of pain, a framework designed to measure the strategic value of IOCs, IP addresses occupy the second tier, just above hash values. This positioning highlights their increased value and complexity over hashes. While hash values represent unique fingerprints of files, often easily changed by adversaries, IP addresses represent elements of the infrastructure attackers use to carry out their campaigns, such as command and control, C2, servers, phishing sites, exploit delivery platforms, and exfiltration endpoints. Understanding the role of IP addresses in cyber attacks, how they are used by threat actors, and how defenders can detect, monitor, and mitigate them is critical for elevating an organization's cybersecurity posture. What is an IP address? An Internet Protocol (IP) address is a unique identifier assigned to each device connected to a network that uses the Internet Protocol for communication. It functions much like a home address, allowing data to be routed to and from the correct destinations. There are two main types of IP addresses. IPv4, e.g., 192.168.1.1, the most widely used format, consisting of 4 octets. IPv6, e.g., 2001:0DB8:8000:0000:0000:8A2E 0370:7334, a newer format with a vastly larger address space, created to address IPv4 exhaustion. How attackers use IP addresses. IP addresses play a central role in many phases of a cyber attack. Command and control, C2. Once a system is compromised, malware communicates with a remote server for instructions, typically through a known IP. Delivery of payloads, exploits or malware are hosted on malicious servers identified by specific IPs. Phishing campaigns, emails often link to IP-based URLs or redirect to IP addresses hosting fake login pages. Data exfiltration, attackers use IPs as drop points to which stolen data is transmitted. Botnets and DDoS infrastructure, coordinated attacks often operate through networks of infected systems communicating with central IPs. Because of these roles, defenders commonly track and block known malicious IPs to interrupt attacker operations. IP addresses in the Pyramid of Pain. According to David J. Bianco's original Pyramid of Pain concept, IP addresses are slightly more difficult for attackers to change than hash values, but still relatively easy. Blocking an attacker's IP can disrupt their operations temporarily, but they can often acquire new IPs quickly using cloud hosting, VPNs, or other infrastructure. The key insight: blocking an IP might stop one campaign, but not the adversary. This makes IP addresses a mid-level tactical IOC, useful for short-term mitigation but not highly impactful on long-term attacker capabilities. Defensive use of IP address indicators. 1. Blacklisting. Most common method. Known bad IPs are added to firewall, proxy, or intrusion prevention systems, IPS. Effective for fast triage and prevention. 2. Threat intelligence feeds. Security vendors and open-source intelligence, OSINT, sources provide up-to-date lists of suspicious or malicious IPs, These feeds can be ingested by CIEMs or XDR platforms for correlation and alerting. 3. Geolocation and reputation scoring. IP addresses are scored based on prior abuse, hosting behavior, and geographic location. Requests from high-risk IPs, e.g. Tor exit nodes, known bulletproof hosting providers, are treated with suspicion. 4. Network behavior analysis. Unusual traffic patterns involving rare or suspicious IPs may trigger alerts. For example, a user workstation initiating a connection to an IP in a foreign country at midnight could raise suspicion. 5. Honeypots and sinkholes. Organizations deploy honeypots to attract malicious traffic. The IPs that interact with these decoys can be flagged as suspicious and monitored. Challenges in relying on IP addresses. Despite their usefulness, IP-based detection has significant limitations. 1. IP reuse and reassignment. Dynamic IP addresses are frequently reassigned by ISPs. A malicious IP today might belong to a legitimate user tomorrow. 2. Use of proxies, VPNs, and TOR. Attackers route traffic through anonymizing services to hide their true origin. These services use shared IPs, increasing the risk of false positives. 3. Cloud infrastructure. Attackers can easily spin up new virtual servers on AWS, Azure, or Google Cloud. IP rotation is automated in many attack frameworks. 4. False positives. Blocking an IP used by a shared service, e.g., CDN, email relay, can inadvertently block legitimate users or business services. 5. Short lifespan. Many malicious IPs are active for a short window. By the time an IP is flagged, it may no longer be in use. Best practices for IP IOC management. To effectively use IP addresses without falling into the trap of reactive, low-value defense, organizations should correlate with other indicators, combine IPs with domains, behaviors, or tool signatures for higher confidence. Use context-aware threat intelligence, look beyond simple lists and understand what each IP is associated with, e.g., malware family, campaign. Monitor IP behavior over time, track how an IP behaves across networks and services. Segment blocking. Isolate blocks to only parts of the network where the risk is greatest, reducing operational disruption. Automate but verify, use SOAR platforms or playbooks for automated response, but always review critical actions involving IPs. Impact on attackers. While changing an IP is relatively easy for attackers, blocking them does introduce friction. Forces attacker to rotate infrastructure. Can slow down active campaigns, especially if multiple IPs are quickly identified and blocked. May cause delays in command and control communication, especially if fallback mechanisms fail. This impact is limited but still meaningful, particularly in short-term containment of threats. Examples of real-world application. APT campaigns. IP addresses used by Russian APT groups like Fancy Bear or Chinese groups like APT41 are often published in IOC reports. Blocking these proactively can prevent contact with known infrastructure. Ransomware. Threat actors deploying ransomware often use the same IP for multiple victims during a campaign's peak. Early detection can stop lateral movement or exfiltration. DDoS protection. Services like Cloudflare, Akamai, and Arbor networks use IP-based blacklists to mitigate high-volume attacks. IP addresses are an essential part of a defender's toolkit. As IOCs, they are more meaningful than file hashes, but not as strategically disruptive as behavioral indicators or TTPs. They offer quick wins and immediate protection in many scenarios but should not be relied upon as the sole line of defense. In the context of the pyramid of pain, IP addresses serve as a bridge between simple, easily changed indicators and more persistent, behavior-based intelligence. Their true value emerges when integrated into a comprehensive, layered defense strategy, one that combines technical controls, threat intelligence, and contextual awareness to deliver robust security outcomes. Domain names, the third layer of pyramid of pain. Introduction to domain names in cybersecurity. In the world of cybersecurity, the domain name plays a crucial role as a pivotal indicator of compromise, IOC. The use of domain names is pervasive in cyber attacks, serving as the gateway for malicious traffic to enter and exit victim networks. From malware distribution to command and control, C2, communication, domain names facilitate critical components of an attacker's infrastructure. Within the pyramid of pain, domain names occupy the third layer, positioned higher than IP addresses because they present more resilience against attacker adaptation and require greater effort to change. Domains represent a step up from IP addresses in terms of complexity and impact. Attackers can quickly change IP addresses, but altering a domain requires more effort and time. The mere act of altering or moving a domain often involves acquiring new infrastructure, adjusting DNS configurations, and potentially using more advanced techniques such as domain generation algorithms, DGAs. In this section, we will explore the role of domain names in cyber attacks, the challenges they present to defenders and attackers, and how they are integrated into the defense strategy to disrupt adversarial campaigns. What is a domain name? A domain name is a human-readable address used to identify resources on the Internet, such as websites, servers, or services. For example, www.example.com is a domain name. Underneath a domain name, there is a hierarchical structure. 1. Top-level domain, TLD. This is the last part of the domain, such as .com, .net, or country-specific TLDs like .uk or .jp. 2. Second-level domain, SLD. This is the portion of the domain name directly to the left of the TLD, e.g., example in www.example.com. 3. Subdomains. These are portions of the domain name used to create distinct sections of a website or service, e.g., blog.example.com. Domains are typically resolved into IP addresses through the domain name system, DNS, allowing browsers and other services to find the servers they are attempting to connect to. Cybercriminals leverage this mechanism to hide in plain sight by hosting malicious content or running C2 infrastructure. How attackers use domain names. Adversaries utilize domain names in many ways as part of their attack infrastructure. Some of the most common uses include 1. Command and control, C2. Attackers use domains to establish communication channels between compromised systems and their C2 servers. The malware on a victim machine will reach out to a specified domain to receive instructions or send stolen data. Example: a piece of ransomware may be programmed to reach a domain like malware-control.example.com to retrieve encryption keys or report on its progress. 2. Phishing. Malicious actors often create domain names that closely resemble legitimate ones to trick victims into visiting fake websites for credential harvesting or data exfiltration. Example: a phishing email might contain a link to www.paypal1.com, substituting the number 1 for the letter L, a domain that looks deceptively similar to the legitimate paypal.com. 3. Malware distribution. Attackers frequently host malicious payloads, such as viruses, trojans, or ransomware, on domains they control. Victims who download files from these sites inadvertently infect their systems. Example: a malicious email might contain a link to a domain such as malicious-download.com, where an attacker hosts a Trojan that gets downloaded upon visiting. 4. Exfiltration of stolen data. Attackers exfiltrate sensitive data by sending it to a domain they control, typically via HTTP, HTTPS, or other communication protocols. Example: a botnet might send data from a compromised system to exfiltration server.example.com. 5. Fast flux networks. Fast flux techniques involve rapidly changing the DNS records of a domain, making it harder for defenders to block or trace the malicious infrastructure. This is done to evade detection by traditional IP blocking techniques. Example: a botnet might use a network of proxy servers to hide the true destination by cycling through a large number of fast-changing domain names. 6. Domain generation algorithms, DGAs. Advanced adversaries often use domain generation algorithms to create domains dynamically, making it extremely difficult for defenders to preemptively block all potential domains. DGAs typically generate domain names in patterns that attackers control, usually based on some secret seed, such as the current date. Example: a piece of malware might generate domains like tryd.com, rbfq.net, or dua4k.org, and attempt to contact one of these domains for C2 communication. Defenders would need to block entire sets of domains without knowing which one will be used next. Why domain names are more difficult to change than IP addresses. While both IP addresses and domain names are relatively easy for attackers to alter, domain names are considered more resilient than IP addresses for several reasons. 1. Infrastructure overhead. Changing a domain name requires more effort than rotating an IP address. This is because an attacker needs to register a new domain, which may incur additional costs. Update DNS settings to point to new IP addresses. Reconfigure malware or phishing campaigns to reference the new domain. Sometimes, attackers may need to avoid detection from domain registrars or domain blacklist services. 2. Reputation management. Established domains often gain a level of trust over time. Once a domain is blacklisted for malicious activity, moving to a new domain may risk losing this reputation and the advantages of being trusted by DNS systems or email services. Therefore, attackers may want to keep a domain alive for as long as possible, further adding friction to a quick move. 3. Persistence. Domains typically have longer lifespans compared to IP addresses. For example, a domain that has been set up for phishing or C2 infrastructure may be live for weeks or months before being discovered and flagged. In comparison, IP addresses, especially those in cloud environments or VPNs, can be rotated much more frequently, often within hours or even minutes. 4. Easy identification through DNS records. Domains are more easily traceable through DNS queries and can be analyzed for their history, which can reveal useful threat intelligence such as WHOIS information, e.g., the name of the registrar, contact details, etc. DNS records, e.g., AMX, TXT records. Geographic location of the hosting server. Name servers, which may be indicative of hosting environments commonly used for malicious activity. In contrast, IP addresses don't carry this level of metadata by default, and attackers can frequently use anonymous or shared infrastructure, like proxy servers, cloud providers, or VPNs, to obscure their true location. How defenders can mitigate attacks involving domains. 1. Blocking known malicious domains. One of the simplest and most common methods of defending against domain-based threats is to block access to known malicious domains. This can be done using firewalls, DNS filters, or web proxies. Threat intelligence feeds often provide up-to-date lists of known malicious domains that can be added to these security devices. Example: many security services, such as Cisco Umbrella, offer network and host architecture in cybersecurity. In the context of cybersecurity, network and host architecture play a crucial role in defining how systems are structured, how they interact, and how vulnerable they are to different types of cyber attacks. Understanding the structure of both network and host systems helps cybersecurity professionals build resilient defenses and quickly identify potential vulnerabilities or entry points for adversaries. This section will cover the concepts of network architecture and host architecture, explain how they relate to security, and explore common security measures and best practices for both. 1. Network architecture overview. Network architecture refers to the design of a computer network, including its physical and logical components, protocols, and services. A well-architected network is built to efficiently route data while maintaining a high level of security, scalability, and redundancy. Key components of network architecture. 1. Physical layer. The physical layer involves the physical devices, routers, switches, cables, etc., that enable communication within the network. It also includes elements like wireless access points and the internet connection. 2. Logical layer. The logical layer involves the routing protocols, IP addressing schemes, and subnets that dictate how data flows across the network. This includes concepts like VLANs, virtual local area networks, and subnetting, which segment the network into smaller, manageable sections for both performance and security. 3. Perimeter security. This layer is responsible for protecting the network from unauthorized external access. Firewalls, intrusion detection systems (IDS), and intrusion prevention systems (IPS), are typically deployed at the network's perimeter to filter traffic and detect threats. 4. Internal security. Inside the perimeter, organizations must segment their internal networks based on trust levels. This can be done using technologies like VLANs, access control lists, ACLs, and firewalls to limit access to sensitive areas of the network. 5. Connectivity. Ensures that different network devices, such as servers, switches, and end-user devices, laptops, desktops, can communicate. This is typically achieved through Ethernet cables, fiber optics, or wireless networks. Key security concepts in network architecture. 1. Network segmentation. Segmenting the network into smaller, isolated segments helps limit the scope of a breach. If an attacker gains access to one part of the network, the other segments may remain secure. This is crucial in preventing lateral movement. Example: sensitive data stored on a server should be isolated from general office traffic using a dedicated VLAN, which prevents unauthorized access. 2. Zero Trust Architecture, ZTA. A security model that assumes no one, either inside or outside the network, should be trusted by default. All access requests are authenticated, authorized, and continuously monitored. Example: users must authenticate multiple times, especially when accessing high-value data, regardless of their location on the network. 3. Firewall configurations. Next-generation firewalls, NGFWs, are often deployed at the perimeter to examine traffic for malicious behavior and block known attack vectors. Firewalls use rule-based filtering to allow or deny traffic based on IP addresses, port numbers, and protocols. 4. Intrusion detection and prevention. IDS monitors network traffic for suspicious activity and potential threats, generating alerts. IPS, on the other hand, actively blocks malicious traffic in real time. Both are critical for identifying potential breaches as they happen and preventing attackers from exploiting vulnerabilities. 5. Secure network design principles. Least privilege. Ensuring that users and systems only have access to the resources they absolutely need, minimizing potential attack surfaces. Redundancy. Network components like routers, firewalls, and switches should be designed with redundancy in mind, e.g., failover systems, backup links, to ensure uptime during an attack or outage. Scalability. Networks should be designed to grow with the organization. As more devices and users connect, the network should be able to accommodate them without sacrificing performance or security. 2. Host architecture overview. Host architecture refers to the design and configuration of individual computers, servers, or devices within a network. The host is a system that runs an operating system and applications, connecting to the network to send or receive data. Key components of host architecture. 1. Operating system, OS. The OS is the core software that manages the host's hardware and software resources. Common OSes include Windows, Linux, and Mac OS. The OS has built-in features for managing security, including file permissions, user management, and security patches. 2. Applications and services. The applications and services running on a host can vary widely depending on the device. This can include everything from web servers, e.g., Apache, Jinx, to databases, e.g., MySQL, MongoDB, to email servers, e.g., Exchange. The security of these applications often depends on proper configuration, regular updates, and hardening. 3. User accounts and permissions. User accounts are created to allow individuals to interact with the host system. Each account has a level of permissions, which determine what the user can and cannot do on the system, e.g., read, write, or execute. Systems should be configured with least privilege in mind, ensuring that users and applications only have the permissions required to perform their tasks. 4. Hardware components. The physical components of the host, such as the CPU, RAM, disk storage, and network interfaces, all play a role in its overall security. For instance, hardware-based security like Trusted Platform Modules, TPM, and Hardware Security Modules, HSMs, can protect data encryption keys. Key security concepts in host architecture. 1. Host-based firewalls. A host firewall is a software-based firewall installed directly on a host to filter incoming and outgoing traffic. It operates similarly to a network firewall but provides more granular control over the system's communication. Example: the Windows Firewall in Microsoft operating systems allows administrators to define rules that control what applications and services can access the network. 2. Antivirus and anti-malware software. Antivirus software provides host-level protection by detecting and removing malware, including viruses, worms, ransomware, and spyware. Anti-malware software scans files, processes, and network traffic for suspicious behavior. Example: programs like Norton or McAfee scan hosts for known threats and vulnerabilities. 3. Operating system hardening. Hardening the host system involves configuring the OS to minimize vulnerabilities. This can include disabling unnecessary services, removing unused software, applying security patches, and configuring strong password policies. Example: in a Linux-based server, services like FTP might be disabled if they are not in use, reducing the potential attack surface. 4. Patch management. Ensuring that the host OS and applications are up to date with security patches is crucial for preventing exploits. Patch management systems automate the process of keeping systems updated. Example: Windows Update automatically installs patches for the Windows OS, while package managers like apt or yum handle patches for Linux systems. 5. Endpoint detection and response, EDR. EDR solutions provide continuous monitoring and real-time detection of malicious activity on a host. EDR tools analyze file system changes, process execution, and network traffic to detect suspicious behavior. Example: tools like CrowdStrike and Carbon Black provide visibility into endpoint activities, allowing security teams to detect and respond to advanced threats quickly. 6. Encryption and data protection. Hosts should use encryption to protect data stored locally or in transit. Encryption ensures that even if an attacker gains physical access to a device, they cannot read the sensitive data without the decryption key. Example: BitLocker on Windows or LUKS on Linux encrypts entire disks to protect data from unauthorized access. 3. Integration of network and host architecture for security. The relationship between network architecture and host architecture is critical in cybersecurity defense. Effective protection involves securing both the individual hosts and the communication pathways between them. Here's how network and host security can be integrated. 1. Intrusion detection and prevention systems, IDPS. Network-based and host-based IDS/IPS systems can work together to provide layered protection. The network IDS/IPS monitors traffic between hosts, while the host IDS/IPS analyzes activity on individual systems. 2. Segmentation and microsegmentation. While network segmentation isolates parts of the network for security, host-based segmentation ensures that even if an attacker compromises one system, they cannot easily move laterally through the network. Example: microsegmentation using VMware NSX ensures that virtual machines have their own security policies, limiting the attack surface between different systems in a virtualized environment. 3. Centralized logging and monitoring. Both network and host activities should be logged and monitored. A security information and event management (SIEM) system can aggregate logs from network devices, routers, firewalls, and hosts, servers, workstations, for centralized monitoring, helping to identify and respond to incidents quickly. Example: tools like Splunk or ElasticStack collect and analyze logs from various sources, providing insights into potential threats across the network and host layers. Effective cybersecurity relies on the proper integration of network architecture and host architecture to create a robust defense strategy. By securing both the communication infrastructure, network, and individual systems, hosts, organizations can better detect, prevent, and mitigate cyber attacks. Cybersecurity professionals should focus on securing both layers, leveraging tools like firewalls, IDS/IPS, and encryption to reduce vulnerabilities and thwart malicious actors before they can cause significant harm. Tools in the pyramid of pain. Position in pyramid, second highest, just below tactics, techniques, and procedures, TTPs. Pain to adversary, high. Reason: attackers often invest significant time in acquiring, configuring, or customizing tools. Losing access to a tool, especially a favored or unique one, forces them to retool, costing time and potentially exposing their methods. What are tools? In cybersecurity, tools refer to the actual software, scripts, utilities, or frameworks that attackers use to conduct their operations. These can include exploitation tools to gain access to systems, reconnaissance tools to gather information, credential theft tools to extract user data, lateral movement tools to move across the network, persistence tools to maintain long-term access, command and control, C2, frameworks for remote control. Examples of common attacker tools. Why detecting tools matters. When defenders detect or block an adversary's toolset, the attacker must reconfigure or find replacements, which delays their attack. Custom or rare tools may expose the attacker's identity or nation-state affiliation. Defenders gain insight into the attacker's capabilities and techniques. How to detect tools in use. 1. Static signatures, file-based detection. Use YARA rules to match known binary signatures of malicious tools. Antivirus or EDR tools can scan for known file hashes or behavior linked to tools. 2. Behavioral detection. EDR systems, e.g., CrowdStrike, SentinelOne, monitor for suspicious process behavior, like credential dumping, unusual PowerShell activity, registry changes. Detect tools based on how they behave, not just their name or hash. 3. Application whitelisting. AppLocker or Windows Defender Application Control, WDAC, blocks unauthorized software. Prevents execution of common attack tools on user endpoints. 4. Process and command line monitoring. Tools often use predictable command line syntax. Example: Mimikatz.exe privilege debug securlsa login passwords is a known pattern. 5. Network-based indicators. Tools with remote control components, e.g., RATs, C2 frameworks, often use known domains or IPs. Specific communication patterns, e.g., beaconing. Use IDS/IPS and proxy logs to identify these patterns. 6. Sandboxing and detonation. Suspicious files are executed in isolated environments to observe behavior. Tools like Cuckoo Sandbox, Any.Run, or commercial detonation platforms can help. 7. Threat intelligence feeds. Subscribe to feeds that alert on usage of known malicious tools and frameworks. Example: APT threat reports often name specific tools used by groups like APT29 or FIN7. Challenges in tool detection. Tool customization. Advanced attackers may recompile or obfuscate tools to avoid detection. Living off the land binaries. LOL bins attackers often abuse built-in OS tools, like Command.exe, PowerShell.exe, MIC, etc., that are trusted by the system. Encryption and packing. Malware authors often encrypt tools or use packers to evade AV engines. Defensive tools to detect adversary tools. Impact of blocking tools. When defenders effectively block or detect a threat actor's tools, it disrupts the attack timeline and increases their operational cost. Forces the attacker to change tactics, which can be noisy and detectable. Prevents the attacker from gaining further access, moving laterally, or stealing data. In the pyramid of pain, the tools layer represents a high-value target for defenders. Detecting and blocking these tools forces attackers to slow down, reconfigure their strategy, and exposes them to detection. By leveraging behavioral monitoring, threat intelligence, and endpoint protection technologies, defenders can make this level of the pyramid truly painful for adversaries. Tactics, techniques, and procedures (TTPs) in the pyramid of pain. Position, top of the pyramid, most impactful. Pain to adversary, very high. Why? TTPs reflect an adversary's underlying strategy and tradecraft. When defenders detect and counter these, attackers must significantly alter how they operate, something that is time-consuming, difficult, and costly. What are TTPs? Tactics, the why, the high-level goals of an attacker, e.g., credential access, data exfiltration. Techniques, the how, general methods used to achieve those goals, e.g., keylogging, phishing. Procedures, the specifics, unique implementations of techniques, often customized, e.g., using a macro-laden Excel file to deliver a payload. These elements are commonly mapped using the MITRE ATT and CK framework, which helps defenders recognize and understand common TTPs across threat actors. Examples of TTPs. Why TTPs are so valuable to detect. Hard to change. Unlike IPs or hashes, TTPs reflect behaviors and processes that define how an attacker operates. Reveal tradecraft, they provide insight into the attacker's goals, tools, and sophistication. Enable proactive defense, by understanding TTPs, defenders can predict attacker behavior and close vulnerabilities before exploitation. How to detect and defend against TTPs. 1. Behavioral analytics. Uses machine learning or statistical models to spot anomalies in user and system behavior. Tools, Microsoft Defender XDR, Darktrace, Vectra AI. 2. MITRE ATT and CK mapping. Use the framework to track techniques used in past intrusions. Tools, ATT and CK Navigator, security analytics platforms. 3. Threat hunting. Actively searching for evidence of attacker behavior using TTP knowledge. Use logs from Sysmon, EDR tools, SIEM systems. 4. Detection as code. Use Sigma, YARA, KQL, or Splunk SPL to write detection rules targeting TTPs. 5. Red and purple team exercises. Use frameworks like Atomic Red Team, Caldera, or Meta to simulate attacker TTPs and test detection. Tools to track and analyze TTPs. MITRE ATT and CK, centralized framework to categorize and understand TTPs. Sigma rules, platform-independent rules for detecting ATT and CK techniques. EDR platforms, CrowdStrike, SentinelOne, detect and alert on behavioral patterns. Threat intelligence platforms, enrich incidents with known actor TTPs. Elastic Security/Splunk, SIEM solutions that correlate TTPs to alerts and logs. Impact on adversaries. When defenders detect and disrupt TTPs, the attacker must redesign their workflow. It exposes their campaign structure, potentially identifying nation-state or criminal groups. Causes friction in long-term operations like APT campaigns or ransomware-as-a-service groups. TTPs are the most powerful indicators in the pyramid of pain because they reflect deep adversary behavior, not superficial attributes. Defenders who focus on understanding and detecting TTPs can disrupt entire campaigns rather than just single events. This makes TTP-based defense not just reactive, but strategic.